You had the big 17th district.
17th district.
They called it the Silk Stocking District.
That's right. They called it that, but it would go from Pololo all the way to Hawaii Kai.
That's right, through Hawaii Kai.
That's right.
Well, you've done so much, I know, for women. And the Women's Caucus honored you a couple years ago and dedicated their legislative package to you.
Yes, it was an honor.
But way back then, and it was only a few decades ago, you introduced several bills to help women. And perhaps you could explain what they were.
Yes, Barbara, you know, the women of today, the young women of today, don't realize how things were when I was active politically and in the business community. Things were tough then, and we worked to change quite a few laws. One of them, of course, was the law to allow for women who are pregnant to be covered under maternity leave. Did you know that in those days, as a school teacher, if I were pregnant, which I was, I'd have to take a leave of absence 4 months before the birth of the child, and I had to stay out until 2 months after the birth of the child, and I had to have a doctor's written permission for me to be able to go back to teaching.
Oh my.
And all of that was without pay. I mean, can you imagine that? So we changed that, you can imagine, we changed that. The other thing that we did that people don't remember is that a woman who was single or divorced could not buy a home in her own name. In fact, even if she were married, she couldn't buy a home in her own name because she couldn't get a mortgage in her own name. If she were divorced, her ex-husband had to sign off on the agreement of the mortgage. And you know, that takes some doing for a lot of people. And it was truly unfair that women had to be treated in this way. So
even
we
if
changed
they were
it.
the breadwinner.
Even if they were the breadwinner. So we had to change that, and we did.
Thank you.
The other thing was that a woman could not have a credit card in her own name. Can you imagine that? Today, we have credit cards coming out the gazoo. We don't know what to do with all these credit cards.
They keep coming in.
They keep coming in.
But I had that problem. I couldn't get
do you remember
a credit
that?
card, yes.
Yeah, you couldn't get a credit card under your own name. It was interesting because that didn't take legislation. You know what it did? It took by example. What I did was I was on the board of directors of AmFac Inc., which was the biggest corporation in this state.
Yes.
I was on that board for 14 years. Henry Walker was the chief executive officer and president of AmFac, and we owned Liberty House.
That's right.
Remember? Liberty House, one of the biggest retail firms, stores in this state. So I called Henry one day and I said, Henry, did you know that at Liberty House, a woman cannot have a credit card in her own name? He says, no, that's not true. I said, it is true. I can have a credit card as Mrs. Stanley Saiki, but I can't have a credit card as Patricia F. Saiki. He said, I don't believe it. I said, that is true, Henry, so please check on this. He turned around, immediately picked up the phone and called the head of Liberty House and said, is this true? And they said, yes, it is. He said, change it.
Thank you, Pat.
And once he changed it, then all the other stores followed suit, McInerney and all the other stores. It took a little more time for the larger national stores like Diners Club.
I had a similar problem. In 1980, I had a JCPenney's card in my husband's name, but after divorce, I wanted to get my own credit card.
Yes.
And so I was not able to obtain one.
That's right.
And I couldn't get a MasterCard credit card, but then I was an elected official by then, so I called up the bank president at the time, who was Walter Dodds, and said, Walter, I would like to have a credit card, a MasterCharge, because it has my picture on it. And he said, sure. And so he gave me one with a $300 limit. Oh, so, but that was the start.
That was a start.
It was a start.
And it was, like I said, by example that Henry, led the way. And he didn't receive the credit he should have. But then today, maybe he'll hide because we have so many credit cards. We don't know what to do with them. And of course, the usual problem, which still exists today, is the equal pay for equal work. Women were not considered equal to men, even if they performed the same job. And although we have improved, things can be much better. The other thing that was interesting, too, is that the larger corporations in this state did not have women on their boards of directors. And I was the first on the AmFac board and the first on the Hawaiian Airlines board. And I think that helped to open the way for other women to be accepted by the power elite to have women on their boards of directors. But can you imagine, Barbara, it was not more than 30, 40 years ago that this was true. Today, it's open, and women are accepted for what they are, although I think they should get paid more.
Well, I think I agree with you, but we're seeing more women in high positions nationally on the state level. So
That's true.
You were a real pioneer, and so we thank you. And I really just followed right in your footsteps because I live in your district, so I was able to run for the House from our neighborhood. So thank you for that. And
but you were always a comer. You were always a doer. And you always had the spirit of public service. So, Barbara, people just accepted you. I mean, and they still do.
Well, thank you very much. But, if you're of the neighborhood, the folks still live there, the Marumotos,
Yeah.
and the kids went to school in the area. So it was
it helps.
an easy being a part of the community. But, you went on to Congress, and I don't think I'll be following you there, but what was it like for a Hilo girl to go to Washington?
Oh, it was exciting, very exciting. It's a whole new scene there because you're working with 434 other people. And if you want to make yourself known, you have to understand the rules, and you have to know whom to reach. And you have to sometimes either get the lobbyists with you or fight the lobbyists that are against you. So it takes a little more maneuvering than people think. But it's a matter of attitude. My posture always was, I have a vote. It doesn't wear hula skirts. Mm-hmm. Just because I come from a small state doesn't mean that my vote doesn't count. And so it was with that attitude that I could get others to see the necessity to support some of our programs that I had pushed. And so it was exciting. It was exciting, but challenging, very much so.